event, Battle of English. To this wonderful event, Battle of English. As the beginning, first of all, I would like to call Arunavi to talk about the Eagle poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson.
Good evening to you all. Today I am going to speak about The Eagle by Alfred Lord Tennyson. The poem Eagle was written by the most famous British poet Alfred Lord Tennyson. He belonged to the Victorian era. Most of his poems are related to the nature in order to boost his readers to appreciate the nature. We all know that the nature connects our soul with God's. That's why many Victorian poets focus their writing under the topic of nature. In this poem, Tennyson deals with many natural elements in order to add the literary value to the poem. And poet used the eagle as the material of this poem. We all know that eagle is a rare bird which is very different from other birds. Eagle is a symbol of bold, different, powerful justice and motivation. Eagle's behavior is highlighted as the motivational behaviors. And here, Tennyson used the eagle to portray the power of masculinism. Poet uses the bird to compare the eagle with the high authoritative society. When we see the food chain, we can identify that the predatory animal beings are also always on the top of the food chain. As the eagle is also the predatory bird, it also has a big power to survive in this world, and his solitary living also indicates this fact. Let's analyze the title of this poem. The title of this poem is The Eagle. Poet uses the eagle as the title because the poem subject is all about the eagle as a powerful monarch. When we skip the title, we can move on the first line. The first line says the appearance of the eagle. He claps the ground with crooked hands. Here, the poet uses he to portray the characteristic of the eagle as a human character, especially as a male character. Greg visualized the living place of the eagle. Furthermore, the crooked hands portrays the hands. It means its legs. Generally, we all know that the eagle is a bird which doesn't have hands, but here poet uses the hands for the eagle to indicate its talents in order to humanize the birds, and it gives the ugly look about the eagle also. But another critic says that the poet indirectly says the eagle's dishonesty by giving this phrase. Close to the sun in lonely lands. It shows the freedom of the bird. Eagle is not like other birds. It is the exceptional one, and it is a godlike bird in our society. Uh, and the hyperbole is used here to exaggerate the power and the freedom which the bird eagle has. We all know that the sun is the most powerful source in our solar system. But here, the poet shows the bird's position is equal to the powerful sun. And it is the diction which used here to paint the strengthness of the bird eagle. And that's the strength which helps the eagle to survive in all situations. And by giving this phrase, poet effectively brings the eagle as a dominator of the sky. Ringed with the azure world, he stands. It shows the environment around the eagle. Here, the azure world portrays the bright blue sky and the solitary environment which the eagle has perched. And some critics say that the poet uses this phrase to paint the bright life which eagle has compared to other kind of birds. The wrinkled sea beneath him grows. It also another diction to portray the power of the eagle. We all know that the sea is the most powerful creation of the nature, and it has the power to make disasters as well. But here, from the poet's point of view, the powerful sea is like a small baby who is crawling in the eagle's mind. And I mean that from the eagle's view, powerful sea is like powerless. And another meaning comes as the wrinkled sea. It indicates the old people, and the natural element sea portrays the life circle of our lives, and the sea waves are portrayed as the wrinkles, and it shows the high imaginative power of the poet as well. He watches from his mountain wall. Mountains are metaphorically portrayed as the walls of the king's castle, and it shows that the eagle is living like a powerful king in his life because of its majestic look and strength and all these things. And it indirectly portrays the life of the high status people in our world. They are living like a monarch, and the poor ones are their right hands to do all these things they need. They get all their ease from pores and used all their victims of the greediness. And in my opinion, this line is the most powerful line to show the power's value in this world. Um, and when we see that the thunderbolt he falls, it shows the eagle capacity to fly very speedily and boldly. And from this line, we can take the bird eagle as an awe-inspiring bird. Thunderbolt is the most powerful thing in this world. It can affect our world in many ways. And here, using the birds flying as a thunderbolt, poet wants to paint the eagle as a bird, which affect the innocent animals in many ways. And poet didn't mention the purpose of the bird's sudden flying, but readers can understand that the eagle's speed flying is to make innocent animals as a victim of its hungry. Let's analyze the themes which will come under this poem. Majesty of nature. Majesty of nature is conveyed through this wonderful poem and the eagle's actions. As an ordinary human, we can't see the eagle and its living place. We don't know about its movements. Here, the poet indicates that it's majesty and the power of the nature to protect its belonging ones. And nature caged uh, itself as a shield for the eagles. Survival of the fittest. It is also one of the major themes in this poem. It's not only common for eagle, but also can apply to the human world. It's the brutal and bitter truth that only the power and fittest can rule our world. Eagle is not like other birds. It has a flashing speed, sharp eyesight. It depends on innocent animals in order to fulfill its hungry. So in this world, bird eagle is like a high authority ruler, and it shows the survival of the fittest in the world. Power of power of masculinity. It is also one of the main themes which poets wants to convey to these readers through this wonderful poem. Poet gives the gender of the bird as male and gives the characteristics similar to the high authority man in our modern society. And by giving this theme, poet wants to convey the power of masculinity. Freedom. Freedom is also the major theme in this poem. Poet uses the hyperbole to paint the freedom of the bird, and it also similar to the freedom of the high status people as well. Here the power can be described as the freedom of the bird. Let's analyze the poetic techniques in this poem. The eagle is very shortest poem in this poem. Verse consists of two stanzas, and even though it's the shortest poem, it has big hidden themes and meanings. Each stanza has three rhyming lines, and it called as triplets. When we see the first line, we can understand the personification was used to give a human nature and human characteristic to the bird eagle. Poet humanizes the bird with a male character. When we see the second line, hyperbole was used to exaggerate the freedom of the bird, and poet uses the exaggerated words for it. Symbolism is used in this poem. The eagle is a symbolism for the power, and mountain walls are symbolism for the shield of nature. Mountain wall is a metaphor used in this poem. Like a thunderbolt is a simile used in this poem to portray the power of eagles flying and the speed which eagle has when it fly. This poem is rich in visual imagery in order to paint the appearance and the behavior patterns of the eagle. Let's analyze one question according to this poem. The question is, Alfred Lord Tennyson very successfully bring out the picturesque view of the natural elements in this poem, The Eagle. Let's analyze the answer. Alfred Tennyson is the most famous British poet who wrote many poems relevant to the nature and its beauty. When we see the poems, the eagle is also under the topic of nature. Let's analyze how this poet pictures the natural elements in the poem. The Eagle is a poem which is all about the bird eagle and its environment which it lives. He claps the ground with crooked hands. This line is a fine example for the picturesque view of the eagle. By using the personification, poet effectively brings out the image of the eagle as a powerful man. Crooked hands portray the strength of the eagle in the reader's mind. Readers can able to view the appearance and the actions of the eagle by the poet uses of the visual imagery and the personification. Close to the sun in lonely lands, it shows the eagle's freedom in the sky. By using the exaggerated words, also poet paints the unlimited freedom which eagle has in the sky like a high authority of status rulers. As you word, this phrase portrays the world of the eagle, and it shows the loneliness of the eagle as well. And this phrase indirectly says the bright life which eagle has compared to other living beings and other humans in the world. And because of its power, wrinkled sea beneath him grows. The wrinkled sea, the powerful sea is like powerless, and he watches from his mountain walls. We can picture us the safe environment which eagle perched by the uses of the natural elements in the poem, and we can able to row the eagle's living place as the king's castle according to the line. By using the phrase wrinkled sea, poet nicely touched the appearance of the sea, and poet paints the vivid picture of the powerful sea and its wave by mentioning this phrase in this poem. Therefore, in conclusion, we can say that the Alfred Lord Tennyson successfully brings out the picturesque view of the natural elements in the poem in order to picture us the eagle's power and all these things. Overall, we can say that Eagle is a wonderful poem of nature, and it shows the survival of the fittest in our modern society. Thank you for hearing.
Thank you for your wonderful explanation, Arnavi. Next, I call Berlini to explain about the story Nightingale in the Rose written by Oscar Wilde. And it narrates about a heroic sacrifice of a small bird purely for love and on behalf of a young student who represents the materialistic values in the society he lives. I'll give the side to Berlin.
Good evening, everybody. Today I wish to talk to you guys about the short story that mentioned in our literature book, The Nightingale and the Rose. This short story was written by an Irish poet and playwright called Oscar Wilde. So if you look at this poet, He is very different from other poets in the Victorian era. He lived in England, as he is an Irish poet. He lived in England, and he was very totally different. His poems and his playwrights were very different from what others do, because he wrote many short stories and books and novels based on the theme of love, and especially on. Sorry for the interruption. I got kids in this home, so sorry for this. Sorry for that. They are too playful. But what I was telling about you is about the poet Oscar Wilde. His poems and novels was very different from what others wrote in the Victorian era. As we know, Victorian era was a very strict era in England and all over the world. So people who lived in Victorian era had so many rules in their life. So as a person from England, this person Oscar Wilde was also faced many obstacles during his writings and during in the process of exposing his talents. So we can find many novels in his novels about novels that he wrote in these online, like The Happy Prince and The Obstacles of Oscar Wilde. So this short story was written by him to mention so many themes to the society, to convey so many messages to the society. So it has many themes that I will mention this after telling about you guys about the story. So this story has three main characters as protagonists. We can find a bird as a small creature called Nightingale, and a small young student who studies philosophy studies. And the third person is called a professor's daughter, with whom the young boy fell in love. So if we look at the first character, the bird Nightingale, the nightingale is very different from the humans being. So as we know, every creature has its own personality. So this bird nightingale used to sing songs and uh, used to sing songs all along the night about love. For it, by this opinion, the love means very pure and innocent for the nightingale, whereas we can find the young student who studies philosophical is totally different from the nightingale's thought. For the young student, the only thing all he knows is about his studies and books. And we can find this young student as a very bookish person who believes in the sages saying, and who believes in philosophical quotes. And the third character is the professor's daughter. This professor daughter has the minimum dialogues in this short story, as she impact her character impact most of the people in the society. We can find her as a most selfishness character in this short story. So this short story starts with the theme of love, because in the beginning of the story starts with the young student who cries in his garden for a red rose. It may be strange for the readers to think why this boy is crying for a red rose, but if we read it deeply, the young student is crying for a red rose because only if he bring a red rose to his loved one, or to his loved one, or then only she will dance with him. So this incident make a big impact on the young student's mind, because and on that time it was a winter season also. There were no any red roses, especially no red roses, but at that time it was a night, and the young student didn't know what to react and repeat, because we can understand from his lines that he fell in love with the professor's daughter very madly. So he sat down in the grass and he started to cry all along the night to and he was mourning to himself that what can I do without a red rose? She would dance with me only if I bought her a red rose. And there was an oak tree near to him, and on that tree we can find the pure soul as the nightingale was sitting in there. So the nightingale heard all of this, all of his sorrows and all of his mourning dialects. So the nightingale, as I mentioned, she is very sensitive towards love. So the writer, so sorry. So the nightingale decided to bring the red rose for the young student in order to serve his love, because the nightingale thought his love is pure, and if she bring him a red rose, then definitely his love would be successful. That was the nightingale's thought, but the actual incident happened was totally different. The nightingale decided to bring a red rose by however it took. So she flew away all around the air, and she went tree by tree. But as I mentioned, that was a very winter season. So winter season, red roses are very rare that will be unavailable, because the tree's veins will be very freezed. So the tree says to the nightingale that, sorry, my roses are really red, but the fact is it's a winter season. So my rose, I can't get a pure red rose because my veins are freezed. So on that time, Nightingale was too upset because she asked so many trees to get a red rose, but finally, even though she find a red rose tree, she couldn't get a red rose. But at that time, Oscar Wilde put a plot twist here that as I mentioned before, this story has a fairy tale elements, which in the practical stories, usually birds can't speak or trees can't speak. But here, including the book, other creatures speaking sense. Another thing is the red rose tree mentioning that there is another way to get a red rose, but it will be very terrible, even beyond your thoughts and opinions. So the nightingale was hesitating to ask, but the tree was hesitating to tell what was the way, but the nightingale didn't even hesitate herself to ask. I don't care whatever the challenge is. I would accept it because the young student wants to get his love. That was her only thought, but even though the retro street doesn't want to give her that way, give her that choice, just because of the nightingale's pressure, the retro street accepts this to tell. And the thing which was very terrible for bringing a red rose, it was very terrible, as the tree said that you have to sacrifice your life in order to get a red rose. Even though it's scary, the nightingale didn't back forward from her decision. She decided to get a red rose, and she knows that death is the greatest prize for getting a red rose. But even though she knows her life is more worth than a red rose, as a person who loves love, she realized that a bird's lifetime is more cheaper than a human's life, right? So she decided to sacrifice her life, and for getting a red rose, she should sing all along the night, and finally she should kill herself. Even though the young student can't understand what the bird is doing, he was in upset, so he said so many things by decreasing the respect in the nightingales. And he said, those notes in her voice are sweet, but what does it mean by sweet? They have no meaning in life. They don't make any sense. So even though the young student said so many things, for the nightingale, her only challenge, her only aim was getting a red rose in order to help his love. So in this time, we can understand one thing, that the boy loves the professor's daughter, where the nightingale loves the boy more than herself, because it's not easy to sacrifice herself to get a red rose to help his love. So this shows the other creatures active sensible activities towards human being. And at last, when the nightingale get a red rose, she says that don't worry, be happy. And she mentions some valuable things about love. She says love is far expensive than those pearls and minerals and all of this. So it shows that how much respect the nightingale has towards love, whereas the young student, even though he's a very philosophical person, he got a little impression towards love, but that little impression didn't last for so long, because as long as he get a red rose, he ran towards the professor's daughter's home. And he was too happy to get a red rose, because it was unbelievable to get a red rose on that time. But even though he gave her a red rose, the professor's daughter disagreed with his deal, because she was saying that the Chamberlain's nephew was giving her some expensive jewels and dresses for the party. And the this cheap red rose is more cheaper than, how can it be compared to those jewels and pearls. So this shows her selfishness, and at last, the young student understands the meaning of love, and he got a thought that love should be come from the soul, not from her appearance, or not for the law of attraction. So at last, the young student decided to give up on his love towards a professor's daughter, and he threw the red rose on the street. And that was totally wasted for the sacrifices of a nightingale, because she didn't get his love, and the nightingale is not exist now. So at last, the writer mentions one thing, that she was the young student was ready to study again about his metaphysics, which shows that we have to understand one thing, that literature and philosophy are two different things, and it has no any similarities between these two, because literature is a way of entertaining and admiring the surrounding, whereas philosophy is the way of understanding and getting a matured enough to know the meaning of life. So even though these two are totally different, this philosophical student get a little movement towards literature as love. But at last, he again go to his philosophical activities, and he decided to study about his philosophy books more and more, because at last he thought that love is such a silly thing, because it makes no sense, because she loves jewels and pearls more than a red rose which he gave her with pure love. So, if we look at the themes of this short story, it has many themes to expose the society. The first one is, of course, the phases of love. We can find three phases of love here. The first phase of love is sacrifice, and sacrifice has the another mask of love. The nightingale symbolizes the love, true love, because even though she is a small creature in this world, she played a big role in this short story in order to confirm that true love does exist, because it will be a negative complaint for the readers if Oscar Wilde just only mentioned about the professor's daughter and the young student, because the reader's mindset would be think that all love is a silly thing. But just because of the influence of Nightingale, readers can understand that the both phases of love still exist, the true one and the fake one. And the another theme is materialism. As we know, this professor's daughter will be the exact perfect example for symbolizing theme of materialism, because love has nothing to do with materialistic things. But here, the professor's daughter decided to be with the champion's nephew just because he bought those expensive clothes and expensive jewels. But the Nightingale was totally different from her mindset. Her statements was like love is more expensive than those jewels and pearls and any expensive than anything in the world. And these two statements stands for an opposite opinions in this short story. And the third theme is literature versus philosophical lifestyle. As I mentioned before, literature is totally different from philosophy. And here, the symbol of literature is, of course, the bird nightingale, because definitely a literature person would be very sensitive towards the society. So here, the bird nightingale is very sensitive towards the young students, just because he has fallen in love, and she thought that her sacrifices would be worth enough for the young student. But whereas we can find the philosophical student, who is the young student, as a philosophical one, because he scolded the nightingale for no reason, and he said she has no meaning in her note, even though they are sweet to hear. They makes no sense. So here we can see that the young student represents the philosophical activities in the society. And thank you for hearing. Sorry for that. And at last, I'm going to analyze the question and answer for this as a better improvement from the short story. And we are going to analyze the question of this short story, that does this sacrifice of the nightingale worth enough? Let's analyze. So, as an introduction, the short story "The Nightingale and the Rose," which has the elements of a fairy tale, was written by an Irish poet and a playwright, Oscar Wilde. As the bird nightingale plays an important role in this short story, we can find her character as a symbol of sacrifice, who gave up her life for a human's love. But does the love worth enough to catch an innocent creature's soul? Let's analyze the statements whether the sacrifice of Nightingale is worth it or not in the coming paragraphs. If we analyze this short story from the beginning, the young student's crying because he has no red rose, but she would dance with him if he bought a red rose for her. When Nightingale heard this all, she feels sad for the young student, and while the boy is crying so much, she feels heartbroken. So the bird decided to brought a red rose for him, but the red roses were not available since it's a winter day. So she planned to fly to search the red rose. So here, the nightingale addresses as a true lover. She asked many rose trees to bring her a red rose, but they said they have other colors of roses, but no red roses. But still, she didn't give up on her decision and goes to another rose tree and asks for a red rose. It's a red rose tree, but because of the climate of winter season, it has no red roses. But it says there's a terrible way to get a red rose, which shows the magical elementary of this story. The way is the nightingale wants to sacrifice its life. She knows it's too much cost, but she is quite happy that she's going to serve a human's love. According to her, love is more worth than life. It has to sing all along the night in the moonlight so that its blood will pass to the tree and the rose will become red. But that young student cannot understand what the bird is doing. The little green lizard, the butterfly, the daisy, they all notice how the young man is crying. And when they get to know the reason for his sadness, they really wondered. But the nightingale was totally different from the lizard and all of these other creatures. She is the one who understands his pain. Finally, that innocent bird sacrificed its life for a human love. And when he sees the red rose, he feels surprised, and it's like a dream for him. But Still, he picks the flower and hurries to the girl, but the girl denied his red rose. You said that you would dance with me if I bought you a red rose. Here, the reddest rose in the old world. You will wear it tonight next to your heart, and as we dance together, it will tell you how much I love you. From these lines, we can see that the Nightingale statement is true. Earlier, it says he is a true lover. This paragraph confirms that he is a true lover with true emotions in his heart, and it shows his innocent behavior. Even though he is a true lover, his love is just an imagination because that beautiful girl says she would marry Chamberlain's nephew, and red rose will be very cheap when it's compared to and expensive jewels and dresses. This arrogant statement makes him more angry and he threw the red rose to the street. When he go back to study, he thinks love is very silly and it's not true. But that bird sacrificed his life for his love. But there are no use and the bird's life wasted for that silly love. So the bird has lost his life for unreal imaginative love. So from these proofs, we can understand that even though the nightingale then sacrifices its life for